Okay, thank you, Richard. We'll get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Before we begin, I would like to note for the record that we are holding this meeting via video conference with the board members and other participants in different locations due to ongoing concerns brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. In saying that, I would also like to note that it is the board's intent to begin conducting in-person meetings at our Strawberry Square location for our next scheduled meeting on October 13th, 2021. Although we are remote, we have provided public access to the video and audio of this meeting through the board's website, as well as publishing the call-in information for those who may not have internet access. Additionally, as is always the case, we have a court reporter present who will be transcribing the meeting. I would ask anyone who has called into this meeting or is using the direct video link to please mute yourself until you need to participate. Also, for those who will be participating in this meeting, I would ask that before you speak, you identify yourself for the court reporter. So, in addition to the 7 board members, we also have representing our ex officio members, George Augusto, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer, and Kristen Heidingsfelder, representing Dan Hassel, Secretary for the Department of Revenue. Thank you all for joining us. With a quorum of the board members being present, I will call today's proceedings to order. As the first order of business, I'd like to ask everyone to please join me for a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. By way of announcement, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, September 14th, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. This meeting was also done via video conference. We have one public hearing scheduled before the board today. It pertains to Mount Erie's petition to reduce the number of slot machines and the size of its gaming floor. Before we begin,
That's good, thanks.
Before we begin, I would ask that all of the non-attorneys who are presenting evidence today in this proceeding, please be sworn in by the court reporter. Counsel? Counsel, could you have your lay witnesses raise their right hands and be sworn in for the court by the court reporter, please?
Mr. Leone, Mr. Whitby, can you hear me?
If you plan to testify, just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I think folks are on mute, but I'm assuming they said I do.
Your Honor,
I didn't.
Figure out where they were on here. I see them listed, but for some reason they said they're having some technical difficulties. In fact, that's them calling in. Hold on.
Okay.
Janelle and Annie, you both need to be sworn in also.
Would you like me to re-administer the oath to anyone else?
I think you should re-administer the oath to everybody.
Okay.
Because I believe some people did not raise their right hand and take the oath. So
Okay.
between Cyrus and Mr. Cairo.
Madam Chair, if I can interrupt you, I have them on the phone. They're saying they're unable to get the audio. Do you just want me to put them on speakerphone so you can hear them at least?
Nick, that would be great.
Okay. Mr. Leone, Mr. Whitby, are you present on the phone?
Yes. Rich Whitby is here.
Can you hear that there, Rich, Madam Chair?
I can. Lacey,
Okay.
can you hear them?
I heard a little voice, but like if
Yeah,
they're
this is-
testifying, that's not going to be good enough for me.
This is Commissioner Logan. Nick, I can't hear you.
Nick, I'm thinking maybe you can have them log back in again.
Frank, can you guys try to log back in again here?
Yes, we'll log back in.
Okay.
They do have the link, right, Nick?
They do. They have the proper link that Attorney Cook sent to me this morning.
Excellent, thank you. I
I
apologize.
apologize for the delay, Madam Chair, members of the board.
That's not a problem. Yeah. Technical difficulties, we experience it all the time.
The unforeseen circumstance I take.
Yes. Not that we don't have an excellent IT staff.
No. Our IT staff is great. I remember my days there. I used to depend on them for everything. So
And again, I'm sorry, this is Sean. Nick, you're gonna have to turn up your microphone, get closer or something.
can you hear me a little bit better, Commissioner Logan?
Somewhat. I'm just worried about the court reporter. I think she indicated she couldn't hear you either.
Madam Court Reporter, can you hear me?
I can hear you, just not as well as I can hear other people.
Okay. I'll try to speak up a little louder. Mr. Leone, are you on the line now?
Mr. Leone, I just see you came in. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
I've got no idea what their issues are on this. I apologize.
No apology is necessary, Nick. We just need to figure out how we can get them sworn.
Rich, is there a number they could call in directly and just do it via audio?
Yes, let me send that to you very quickly. Hold on one moment.
If you just want to give it to me, I'll call them right now and have them call in.
One second, I'm almost there. So the call-in number for them would be 301 715 8592. The meeting ID 881 5136 4863. And finally, the passcode 185023.
All right, let me call them directly and see if I can get them on there.
Madam Chair, since we have a minute, I would note that we do have a matter on the agenda today, a petition for removal from the self-exclusion list by an individual with the initials DB. As the board is aware, in these cases, we just go by a person's initials rather than their full name. And I do note that there's a woman on the call here with the initials DB. So if that is the DB with the petition for removal from self-exclusion, I just wanted to advise her that there is no need for her to disclose her name since it's a self-exclusion matter. In fact, she doesn't even need to keep her video on when her matter is taken up. So I just wanted to make sure she was clear on that, if it's the same person.
Thank you, Steve. You're right, we do have a DB. I believe she could hear what you said and hopefully
Hello, everyone.
she'll make the decision.
It's
as to
Frank
what she wants to do.
Leo.
So Frank is now on the call. Nick, is there anybody else we're waiting on?
Frank Leon and Rich Whitby are both here from Mount Airy.
Those are my two witnesses, Rich.
So we can get started again?
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, back to you.
Okay, so would all non-attorney witnesses in this proceeding please raise your right hand and get sworn in by the court reporter. Lacey, you can take it from here.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay. Nick, petitioners, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, may it please the board, Nick Rodriguez Cairo on behalf of Mount Airy Resort and Casino. My first witness is going to be Richard Whitby. Rich, can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure. Richard Whitby, Whitby.
Can you advise the board how you're employed, please?
I'm the Executive Director of Slot Operations at Mount Airy.
How long have you been employed in your position with Mount Airy?
I've been Executive Director for the last 7 years. However, I've been here since day one as Director and originally Slot Manager.
Can you please provide the board with a brief description of your duties?
Basically responsible for everyday operations for the slot department, from staffing, scheduling, customer service, the technical side, maintenance, repairs, purchases, leases, the whole floor plan.
Are you aware that Mount Airy has filed a petition to reduce the number of slot machines at the facility?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with the contents of the petition?
Yes, I am.
By how many machines is Mount Airy seeking to reduce the count?
We're seeking to reduce by 130 machines.
Of the 130 machines Mount Airy seeks to reduce, how many of these machines are older than 14 years old?
Well, the majority of them are 14 years old.
Are there any of the affected machines that are less than 14 years old?
Yes, there's 8 of them that are less than 14 years old, anywhere from 6 to 13 years.
Are you aware of the gross terminal revenue that OEC and FIU calculated for the 130 machines included in this petition?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell the board that figure, please?
It's $24.35 per day.
Madam Chair, I have no further questions for Mr. Whitby. I would be calling Mr. Leonard next if there's no cross of Mr. Whitby.
Cyrus, do you want to wait until he concludes his entire case, or do you want to cross at this point in time?
No, we'll wait until the entire case is concluded.
That's what I thought. Okay, you may continue, Nick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Leonard, can you please state and spell your last name for the record, please?
Frank Leone, Leone.
How are you employed, Mr. Leon?
I am the Chief Operating Officer, General Manager at Mount Airy Casino Resort.
How long have you been employed in your position with Mount Airy?
Just under 2 years. Started in December of 2019.
How many years have you been employed in the gaming industry?
Just over 40 years.
Are you aware that Mount Airy filed a petition to reduce the number of slot machines at the facility?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the contents of that petition?
Yes.
How many machines is Mount Airy seeking to reduce the count by?
130.
And is it correct that the majority of those machines are over 14 years old?
Yes.
Based on your training, education, experience in the gaming industry, with a GTR of 2435, is the affected space where these machines are located producing an ROI for Mount Airy when contrasted with the cost of the continued operation of 130 machines that's acceptable?
No.
Can you explain your answer to the board?
Well, I think that we find in the numbers that neither the space, which is in a remote location, nor the slot product, which has an average age of 13.7 years, generates 2435, 1 per unit per day, and with utilization below 3%, resonates with our core customer. And taking into consideration the surveillance, security, and slot labor, along with future capital replacement costs. We believe that space and the performance of the product is not conducive to generating an acceptable level of profit, and the associated labor and future capital will be better allocated to other areas of the business. And it is our belief that the wind generated by the affected units will be absorbed by the games that remain on the main floor. And it will, removing the games and repurposing that area will allow us to expand the non-smoking footprint on the main floor and really provide customers with the added convenience of being within close proximity to critical massive amenities rather than being in a remote location. And ultimately, our intent is to repurpose that space for special events, tournaments, and team member training, which we believe will be accretive to its current use.
So you're not planning to leave that space dormant, and are you?
No, our intent is to repurpose the space for special events, tournaments, and team member / dealer training.
And is it your opinion that the de minimis revenue being generated by these machines will be absorbed by the other machines on the gaming floor?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, we've had those machines down since March of 2020. And if you look at, I believe, gross terminal revenue from January 1st of 2021 through July 31st, our slot revenue is actually up versus 2019. So we think that, having those games closed and really having those players play on the main floor has been beneficial to the property.
As the general manager and COO, do you believe it is in Mount Airie's best interest to remove the 130 slot machines from play?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I have nothing further.
Thank you. Any questions from Enforcement Council?
Yes, Madam Chair, we'll turn it over to John Crow, Senior Enforcement Counsel. He'll handle cross-examination.
Thank you. Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow, CROHE. My first question, you mentioned that you anticipate some of the gameplay to be absorbed into the gaming floor. So do you believe that this will result in any reduction in revenue at the facility?
No, I do not believe that we'll see a reduction in revenue at the facility.
Okay. Do you anticipate that the slot reduction would leave any market demand unmet?
No, I don't believe so.
And why not?
Well, it's a non-smoking area, and we know that it's, not utilized to the extent that we would expect or to an acceptable level. And we're actually going to expand the non-smoking footprint on the main casino floor. We already have, based upon the fact that that's closed. So, for folks that are interested in a non-smoking space, there will still be non-smoking spaces on the casino floor, and the main floor will actually have a larger space than it did previously, taking into account that that square footage is no longer in the non-smoking footprint.
If the board were to approve the slot reduction, do you believe that there would still be ample slot inventory in your market region to meet patron demands?
Yes, we do.
Okay. In your professional opinion, is the proliferation of unregulated skill slot machines impacting Mount Airy slot business?
Well, I think that, if you look at the bricks and mortar slot business across the Commonwealth, I believe that it's declined 6 out of the last 8 years, and they say that, those skill-based slot games could range anywhere from 20 to 60,000 units across the Commonwealth. So I would say that there's no question in my mind that it's had a material impact on land-based casino revenue, slot revenue throughout the Commonwealth over the past several years.
Okay, so you're saying that you believe that it's had a negative impact on the brick and mortar casino business?
Yes, I believe it's had a material negative impact on the bricks and mortar slot business across the Commonwealth.
Okay, and it's this one of the causes leading to Mount Airy seeking a slot reduction?
I would say that it certainly contributed to it.
Will there be any impact on the number of employees at Mount Airy as a result of this reduction?
No, there will not be. And as a matter of fact, I think we used 4.2 FTEs in security. We are dedicated to that space, and they've actually been reallocated to a mobile security unit. So we have no intention to reduce labor as a result of this change.
Oh, and what about work hours? Would they stay the same as well?
Work hours, well, for the last year, those folks have, they've been redeployed and have worked, different hours during that time period. So I would say that any changes to the schedule, they've since become acclimated to.
Okay,
based upon the fact that it hasn't been open.
So is there going to be a reduction moving forward as a result of this slot reduction, a reduction in work hours?
No.
And will any Mount Airy employees go from full-time to part-time as a result?
No, sir.
Does Mount Airy plan to increase its table games as a result of this reduction?
We do not at this time.
And what about you touched on it. What is there going to be any increase in smoking areas on the gaming floor?
No, it's actually going to be 50-50 smoking, non-smoking, but you have a larger footprint because the 5,800 square feet that's being removed was non-smoking. So that was taken out of the calculation. Now you have a larger space on the main floor that's non-smoking, but you still have 50-50 on the main floor.
Okay, what about in non-gaming areas?
Non-gaming areas, non-smoking. It's no smoking. And currently, not into perpetuity, but actually currently, the property on the casino floor is entirely non-smoking because we've temporarily suspended indoor smoking privileges on the casino floor.
Okay, and when is that going to when is that going to change back?
You know what? That is currently under review. It's something that we continuously look at and evaluate, and we don't have an answer to that question yet, but I can tell you that I can assure you we're reviewing it at this time.
Okay. Can you give us any more insight or details into your plans for the area where the slots are being removed from now that won't be part of the gaming floor?
Our intention is to use that for special events, banquets, meetings, and to use it as a training area for team members, and relocate when we hold dealer school classes. Normally it's off property and a building off property. We will be able to hold those classes now actually on site in that space. So we think it'll be beneficial to the property to help us be more efficient when it comes to training. And, special events, obviously, once we begin to fully emerge from this pandemic, we think that it will be tremendously beneficial to the property, and having that space, in addition to what we already have, will be beneficial.
And my final question, if the board were to approve the petition, what would be your anticipated time frame for the completion of your plans?
This is Rich Whitby from Slots. I have a party that's interested in purchasing the machines. So as soon as we get the approval, we would just have to arrange shipping, basically. We would strip the machines of the locks and player tracking and cash boxes and such, and just arrange shipping. So I would imagine within 2 to 3 weeks, we could have that area cleared out.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions or comments. But before I do, I actually have two questions. And Nick, if this was covered, let me know. They testified that the GTR in these machines was $24.35. How does that compare to other slot machines at Mount Airy?
I would say that, for the affected machines in our test period, when we calculated 24.35, the actual win per unit, exclusive of those games across the floor, I think it was for the period January 1st through March 16th, that actual win per unit was 277, and that's with free play baked into the number. So the win per unit, across the rest of the floor is in excess of an order of magnitude greater than the win per unit of the slots that are being removed.
Okay, and you have referred to this space as a remote location. Can you give us a little more specifics as to where this remote location is?
Now, I would say it's remote to the extent that you have to take an elevator to get upstairs to it. It's on the 3rd floor. It's not easily accessible from the casino floor itself. There's an elevator dedicated to that space, but it's not convenient to get to.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members have any questions or comments?
Chair, this is Commissioner Mustio. I have a comment. I thought Enforcement Counsel's questioning along the lines of the skill games impact was rather interesting and perhaps something at some point we should further look into. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Any other comments or questions from the board? Hearing none. Cyrus, do you have a presentation you'd like to make?
We do not have a presentation. The only thing that I would add is with regards to the skill games, we're seeing this across the board at all the casinos. So it's something that will be brought up with each casino that comes before the board for slot reductions. So I think we have 2 petitions pending. It's a problem in our industry, and it's starting to have a material effect on the operations of the casinos. The other thing I would add is that we don't have any objection to Mount Airy's request. We'd only ask that the board implement the conditions that we requested in our answer. And I think Mount Airy, if I remember correctly, Mount Airy responded with no objection to those conditions that will help staff on site implement everything that is requested, and also to ensure that we have updated information from Mount Airy with regard to the slot moves.
This is Nick Rodriguez. That is correct. We did agree with all the conditions, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. That concludes this proceeding. The board is scheduled to take the matter up for a vote during the Office of Chief Counsel's portion of the agenda. Next, we have a consideration of a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of the June 16th, 2021 meeting. May I have such a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the June 16, 2021 meeting.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? The motion is adopted. We will now hear from Executive Director Kevin O'Toole. Kevin? Kevin, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Okay, good.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. For this morning's Executive Director's report, I would like to share with the board the most current information regarding the positive revenue production of the land-based casinos in Pennsylvania and their associated online gaming operations. Revenues for the month of August, based on preliminary data, will again exceed $400 million from all sources of gaming that the Gaming Control Board provides regulatory oversight. August will be the 5th month of the last 6 months to reach that plateau for revenue generation. The figures that we have seen since the beginning of the year have shown a steady increase in table game play in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And table game play have been exceeding expectations and setting records in terms of both the amount of table game play on a weekly basis as well as on a monthly basis. Slot machine revenue has been more of a challenge, although it is doing fairly well. It is not performing at the rate of improvement that we see on the table game side. Clearly, however, reaching that plateau of $400 million per month in gaming revenues on a consistent basis reflects that such an accomplishment is now the norm. Additionally, this record of generating gaming revenue brings to Pennsylvania more and more companies that want to participate in our jurisdiction in the online gaming and sports wagering markets. Board staff has done a great job of effectively communicating with these already successful operators, manufacturers, content providers, and marketing affiliates to ensure that they complete the licensing process, the equipment testing and certification process, and all other aspects of the system of regulatory oversight required by the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. The point that I want to make this morning is that the future continues to look bright for the land-based casinos as well as the interactive gaming operators. Although there are challenges that need to be met, things are going for the most part in the right direction. And the addition of interactive gaming operators, both from a casino type online games as well as online and retail sports wagering, are adding significantly to the success of the industry in Pennsylvania. That concludes my report today, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. That's all good news. Appreciate it. Next, we have Danette Bixler-George, Human Resource Director. Danette?
Good morning, Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has 2 motions for your consideration today relative to the hiring of 4 individuals and the ratification of the hiring of 1 individual per the authority granted to the Executive Director for vacancies at Hollywood York Casino. First is Jarrett Gaskins and Joseph Bianchi, who have been selected as casino compliance representatives at Hollywood Morgantown Casino in the Bureau of Casino Compliance. These individuals have completed the PGCB interview process, background investigation, and drug screening, and are recommended for hire by Christopher Schroeder, Director of Casino Compliance. Next is Greg Schmidt, who has been selected as a technical field representative at Valley Forge Casino in the Bureau of Casino Compliance. This individual has completed the interview process, background investigation, and drug screening, and is also recommended for hire by Christopher Schroeder, Director of Casino Compliance. And finally, Amber Housley has been selected as an investigator in the Southeast Regional Office within the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. This individual has completed the interview process, background investigation, and drug screening, and is recommended for hire by Paul Morrow, Director of Investigations and Enforcement. Unless you have any questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The second motion from the Office of Human Resources seeks to ratify the hiring of John Leon as a casino compliance representative. The hiring was approved by the Executive Director on August the 27th, 2021 for a position at Hollywood York Casino. This action is consistent with the board's order of July the 14th, 2021, delegating authority to the board's executive director to approve hiring of individuals between board meetings to ensure adequate staffing at Hollywood York Casino. Per that same order, finalization of any hires between board meetings is contingent upon the board ratifying the executive director's action. As such, I ask that you consider a motion ratifying the hiring of John Leon.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion to ratify the executive director's action?
Chair Smiler, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board ratify the executive director's hiring of board staff as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danette. Before we move to Deputy Chief Counsel Steve Cook, I need to make a correction for the record. I have been informed that there is no one representing Secretary Redding, the Secretary of Agriculture, on the call. So I previously stated, I think it was George Augusto was on the call, but unfortunately he's not, and no one is representing that particular ex officio members. So I just want it for the record. So now we will have Deputy Chief Counsel Steve Cook.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. Today, the board has 7 petitions before it for consideration. The first of these petitions was heard earlier today in a public hearing, and all of the remaining matters can be decided upon the documentary record. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with all of the documents of record filed prior to today. As indicated, Mount Airy number 1 LLC's petition to reduce the number of slot machines and the size of its gaming floor is the first petition for consideration before the board. As heard earlier today during the public hearing, Mount Airy is requesting to make changes to the 3rd floor of its casino. They're requesting to remove 130 of their older and or underperforming machines from the gaming floor, reducing their complement of slot machines from 1,817 to 1,687. Additionally, they're requesting to reduce the size of their gaming floor space by 5,898 square feet to a new total square footage of 67,860 square feet. As indicated, all of these changes will take place in the 3rd floor of the casino, which will no longer be designated as gaming floor space. Since the 3rd floor was designated as 100% non-smoking, Mount Airy has stated that they will, upon these moves, designate half of their new gaming floor space on the 1st floor as non-smoking. If Mount Airy's request is approved, the Office of Enforcement Counsel proposes the board impose several conditions that Enforcement Counsel Petrie referenced earlier, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant Mount Airy number 1 LLC's petition to reduce the number of slot machines and the size of its gaming floors described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and with the conditions requested by Enforcement Counsel. I further move that the Enforcement Counsel's motion seeking confidentiality be granted.
Commissioner Nodal seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next before the board is Novamatic AG's petition for approval of a transfer of an 11% interest in Novamatic IG's parent company from the company's majority shareholder, Johann Groff, to a private foundation established by his son, Patrick Groff. Novamatic AG is a licensed manufacturer of slot machines, table games, video gaming terminals, and sports wagering equipment. They are also licensed as an affiliate and a video gaming terminal affiliate due to possessing indirect ownership interests in Ainsworth Gaming Technology, Inc. Ainsworth is an interactive gaming and slot machine manufacturer. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to this request, subject to conditions outlined in its answer, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Canola move that the board grants Novomatic AG petition for shareholders transfer as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the condition requested by the Enforcement Council.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next before the board is Land Game Trusts and Land Game SARL's petition for approval of a final accounting and dissolution of the Land Game Trust. Land Game SARL previously held a 29% interest in Inspired Entertainment Incorporated, a publicly traded company and the corporate parent of Inspired Gaming USA. Inspired Gaming USA has applied to the board for an interactive gaming manufacturer license. Land Game SARL had previously decided to sell its shares in Inspired Entertainment, and in order to facilitate that sale, they created the Land Game Trust, a grantor trust. The trust agreement required the trustee to sell the shares within 1 year of the trust's effective date, and within 20 days of selling, they had to provide a final accounting to the board and obtain board approval for the trust dissolution. The trust agreement, along with a waiver of the principal license requirements of Land Game SRL, was granted by the board previously on January 13th, 2021. And on March 17th, 2021, the trust became effective and Land Game SARL transferred its shares into the trust. As of June 1st, 2021, the Land Game Trust has sold all of its Inspired Gaming stock and a final accounting has been provided to the board. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the withdrawal and dissolution of the trust, subject only to the principal license applications of the trustee and the trust itself being submitted to the board subsequent to today's meeting. And this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant Land Game Trusts and Land Game SARL's petition for approval of a final accounting and dissolution of the Land Game Trust as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the condition requested by the Office of Enforcement Counsel. I further move that the board grant the petitioner's request for confidentiality.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next petition before the board pertains to Joseph McCartney's request for permission to make early reapplication for a credential from the board. On August 8th, 2018, Mr. McCartney applied for a gaming level 2 employee occupation permit, and thereafter on May 1st, 2019, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a recommendation of denial of Mr. McCartney's application for his failure to cooperate with the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. Specifically, Mr. McCartney failed to file and or furnish copies of his 2016 and 2017 federal income tax returns. And it was also discovered that he had several collection accounts. Mr. McCartney never responded to the Office of Enforcement Counsel's request to get more information on both of these issues. And as a result, in July of 2019, the board issued an order denying Mr. McCartney's application. On March 2nd, 2021, Mr. McCartney filed a hearing request, which is being treated as a request for early reapplication for a G2 permit. Absent the board authorizing this early reapplication, Mr. McCartney would have to wait 5 years from his denial or until July 2024 to reapply. In August of 2021, Enforcement Counsel filed an answer indicating that it did not object to Mr. McCartney's request and that he should be allowed to reapply for a credential, as the board granting that relief would not mean he gets a license, but simply that he goes back into another background investigation. And as I indicated, OEC has no objection, and now this matter is ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant Joseph McCartney's request for early reapplication for a gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Mr. McCartney be allowed to reapply for licensure.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board is Sharice Flowerny's petition to lift the suspension of her gaming employee occupation permit. I would note for the record that I see Ms. Flowerny is on the call, and she will have the opportunity to briefly address the board after being placed under oath. What I'd like to first do is give the board a quick summation of this case. Ms. Flowerny was issued a gaming employee occupation permit and was employed as a table games dealer at Harrah's Philadelphia and the Parks Casinos. In December of 2018, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for an emergency suspension of Ms. Flowerny's gaming employee occupation permit after receiving notice that she had been charged with numerous criminal offenses, including felonies stemming from an incident where she and 3 other women were involved in an assault and robbery of $900 from a female victim. As a result of these felony charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Ms. Flowerny's gaming employee occupation permit. Thereafter, a hearing was held by the board's Office of Hearings and Appeals, and on April 17th, 2019, the board issued an order directing that the suspension remain in effect as Ms. Flowerny's felony charges, remained pending. On July 15th, 2021, Ms. Flowerny filed her petition to lift the suspension based upon her being convicted of only misdemeanor offenses and the subsequent completion of her probation sentence. Enforcement Counsel has no objection to Ms. Flowerny's request since the felony charges have been withdrawn, and the fact that those felony charges were the sole basis for the emergency suspension of her gaming permit. That's the matter that's postured before the board. As I indicated, Ms. Flowerny, I believe, is on the call, and this would be her opportunity, if she'd like to address the board, to be sworn and make a brief statement, but she's certainly not obligated to.
Ms. Flowerny, would you like to address the board? This is your opportunity. But before you do, we have to have you sworn in by the court reporter. Lacey, if you can swear Ms. Flowerny, please.
Ma'am, will you raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Flowney, are we pronouncing your last name correctly?
No.
How is it?
It's Flournoy.
Flournoy. Okay,
Yes.
Ms. Flournoy, the floor is yours. You can state whatever you'd like to for the board's consideration.
Honestly, I just want to say that, I'm sorry for what happened to the victim, mainly. And, I completed my anger management as well. That was under, for my probation. And that's really it. I don't really have much to say.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask the board members if they have any questions for Ms. Flournoy or comments. Okay, actually, I do have a question and a comment, Ms. Flournoy. You said you feel sorry for what happened to the victim. What was your role in this particular act?
To be very honest, I was just present at the scene. I did not touch nor steal anything from the victim myself. The only reason why that I was sentenced and charged was because my license plate, somebody took a picture of my license plate at the scene where it had happened, but that my only real role was just being there. Just wrong place, wrong time. Shouldn't have been there, and I know I shouldn't have. And as an adult, I take responsibility for that. So.
And you did not try to help the victim or stop the individual?
I did try to stop. So what happened was I was in my car, and she was my first time friend, but friend at the time, she got out the car, and that's when the assault occurred. I tried to get out to stop, and she saw me. So when they had, I guess, I don't know, like when they pulled my license plate or whatever, she said that I was there, but she never said that I did anything to her. So it just was a big confusion. I don't know.
Okay. Anybody else, any other members, commissioners have any questions or comments?
I just have a question, Mrs. Flournoy. So you pled guilty to simple assault, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and why, you pled guilty to simple assault for what actions of yours? Based on what actions? I mean, what kind of assault did you engage in?
I didn't engage in any assault.
Okay.
I of course stand by that. I didn't engage in any assault, but the simple fact that it was going on for a really long time. I really didn't. The felonies was my main concern. And when they decided to give me a deal, I just took it because, you know, I wasn't working. I lost my job, of course. I wasn't working. I couldn't get a job. And I honestly just wanted to move past it. So I wound up taking the misdemeanor in hopes that I could get my gaming license back so that I could, you know, potentially work again. So that's the reason why I took it, to be honest.
So this victim was assaulted and robbed, though. I'm trying to understand if you are truly accepting responsibility for the role that you played in that, and that that you're able to assure us that this is conduct that was not consistent with your character.
It's not consistent with my character at all, and I do accept my responsibility of being there. As you know, as I stated, I do feel sorry for what happened to the victim. I do feel sorry the role that I played in for even being the driver of the vehicle. So that would be my role, and I do accept responsibility for that. I've never had any charges against me. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not an angry person. So I do feel sorry for what happened to the victim. I do accept my role in the position that it played for the victim to be assaulted and or robbed.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board at this time? I would just like to say, Ms. Flournoy, whatever you did is not in keeping with what we think of as a casino gaming employee. And if we do vote to lift the suspension, we would hope that you never appear before this board again.
Oh, I have no plans on. Trust me, not at all.
Okay. If there's nothing further, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant Shanice Flournoy's petition to lift the suspension of her gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. The suspension is lifted, Ms. Flournoy. You'll receive something to that effect. Am I correct, Steve?
That's correct. You'll get an order in the mail from our Office of Hearings and Appeals.
Okay, thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate it.
And I too apologize for mispronouncing your name.
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay. We can continue, Steve.
The next petition before the board today pertains to the Office of Enforcement Counsel's request to revoke Lillian Leonard's gaming employee occupation permit. Ms. Leonard was employed as a table games dealer at both the Rivers Casino Philadelphia and Parks Casino. The uncontested facts in this matter are that on October 4th, 2020, while working at Parks, a patron notified casino personnel that Ms. Leonard was overpaying another patron at a blackjack table she was working at. It was discovered that the patron she was overpaying was in fact also a table games dealer that she worked with at the Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. A review of Ms. Leonard's conduct showed that Ms. Leonard and the patron had contact in the parking lot of the casino. They had interacted with each other on her breaks, and that she had overpaid him a total of $595 while dealing blackjack on that date. Security thereafter reviewed her October 3rd shift and again found Ms. Leonard had overpaid the same patron on several occasions, resulting in a $1,170 loss to the casino. Then on October 8th, 2020, Ms. Leonard was seen while working, engaging in the same conduct with the same patron and overpaying him $190, to which he was obviously not entitled to receive. She was ultimately charged criminally with her conduct, terminated from Parks, and suspended from her other employment with Rivers Philadelphia. Relative to her criminal charges, Ms. Leonard was accepted into the Bucks County Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition Program, and I believe she remains in that program. In January of 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a revocation complaint. Ms. Leonard originally requested a hearing after receiving the complaint, but subsequently signed a waiver, foregoing her right to a hearing, thereby allowing the board to now decide this matter on the documents of record. And this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board revoke Lillian Leonard's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The last petition before the board today, before I move on to other business, is a request from an individual with the initials DB to be removed from the board's self-exclusion list. As I noted earlier, I note that there is an individual with those initials on the call. If that is the same person and she wishes to address the board, she certainly can after I give a summation. There is no need for her to provide her full name since this is a self-exclusion matter, and we hold that information confidentially. By way of background, on July 11th, 2010, DB placed herself on the self-exclusion list and chose the lifetime self-exclusion option. Board regulations now allow from an individual who chose lifetime self-exclusion to petition the board for removal from the self-exclusion list after 10 years have elapsed from the date of their placement on the list, so long as they complete a problem gambling assessment and follow through on any recommendations made during that assessment or as a result of that assessment. On July 9th, 2021, 11 years after placing herself on the list, DB filed a petition to be removed from the self-exclusion list. In the petition, DB states that she was not in the right state of mind when she placed herself on the list, that she was grieving the loss of her son. She further stated in her request that she's been able to gamble in moderation in trips to Atlantic City. In accordance with the board's current regulations, DB provided with her petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider and confirming that the provider conducted an assessment of DB and that treatment was not recommended as a result of that assessment. The Office of Enforcement Counsel subsequently confirmed the authenticity of the assessment and therefore is no objection to DB's removal from the lifetime self-exclusion list at this time. That's the posture of the case. I note that there is an individual with DB on the call. If this is the same individual and she chooses to comment, now would be appropriate time for her to be sworn and make comment.
This is that DB, and I don't have any comments.
The matter's then ripe for the consideration of the board, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And thank you, DB, for being on the call. Any questions or comments from the board? If not, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant DB's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted. DB, you do not have to stay on the line anymore.
Thank you all.
The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and businesses: Caesars Interactive Entertainment LLC, Joseph Max Asher, Dale Robert Black, Mark David Brooker, Roger William Devlin, Jane Carolyn Hansen, Robin James Terrell, Sylvia Tiscareno, Ann Lynn Hughes, Isle of Capri Casinos LLC, Rolf Bengtson, Matthew Ashley, Simon Callender, Stephen Pari, Andrea Borelli, Divish Gadia, Matthew Donald Mitchell, Matthew King, Mitsuhiro Ueno, Quick Think Digital Limited, Ray Earl Suarez, Richard Harvey Bell, Rush Street Interactive GP LLC, TCG 11 LLC, Timothy James Osborne Throsby, and Victor Duarte. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has reviewed and filed answers to each of these petitions to withdraw or surrender credentials and has no objection to any of these withdrawals being without prejudice. And if so, the board, if they grant these requests today, these persons' credentials and or applications would be withdrawn without prejudice to any of these parties, and all of these matters are now ripe for consideration.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Cannolo move that the board issues order to approve the withdrawals and surrenders described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Before you continue, Steve, I'm just a stickler for having an accurate record. I've been informed that Fred Strathmeyer has joined the call representing Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding. So now you may continue. Thank you.
Thank you. The final two matters to be presented by the Office of Chief Counsel are two reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the complete evidentiary record for each matter, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. And in addition to that, each of the parties to which they pertain have been notified that the board would be taking these matters up today, and they would be given the opportunity to briefly address the board if they so chose. If either of these individuals are on the call, I would ask them to make themselves known after I give a brief summation of the facts. The first report and recommendation before the board pertains to Sheila Graves. On February 27th, 2018, Ms. Graves submitted a renewal application for her gaming level 2 employee occupation permit to continue her position as a slot shift manager at Presque Isle Downs Racetrack and Casino. The Office of Enforcement Counsel sent a notice recommending denial of a renewal application based upon her failure to provide proof that she filed federal tax returns for 2016, 2018, and 2019. Ms. Graves requested a hearing, which was held on March 10th, 2021. Enforcement Counsel appeared and presented testimony and documentary evidence in support of its objection. Ms. Graves failed to appear at that hearing. Several days after the hearing, Ms. Graves contacted the board clerk requesting a new hearing, stating that she had recently changed her email address and did not receive notice about the hearing. As a result, Hearings and Appeals scheduled a new hearing, and it was held, and Ms. Graves also did not attend that hearing. A third and final hearing was held after she again contacted Hearings and Appeals asking for a third hearing, and that was held on May 12th, 2021. Ms. Graves appeared at that time, offering both testimony and documentary evidence. Specifically, she testified that she was trying to obtain documents confirming that she filed the returns in question, but was having issues in doing so because of an identity theft issue that she was dealing with, and also due to COVID-related work slowdowns with the Internal Revenue Service. Ms. Graves did, however, provide completed copies of a 2018 and 2019 return, but still no evidence that they were actually filed. After hearing all of the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued by the hearing officer recommending Ms. Graves' renewal application be granted. After that report and recommendation was issued, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed exceptions to it, stating that Ms. Graves providing copies of the returns in question did not prove that the returns were filed, which has always been the underlying issue, that there was no evidence presenting anything regarding a 2016 tax return, whether it being completed or filed, that she didn't comply with the deadlines given to her to provide proof that the returns were filed, and that she failed to attend 2 hearings on this matter despite being given notice of the hearings. OEC's exceptions, however, further state that if the board were inclined to grant Ms. Graves' application, it do so with the condition that she show complete compliance with the Internal Revenue Service within 1 year. And that is the matter. That's how this matter is presently postured, and it's ripe for the board's consideration. I don't know if Ms. Graves is on the phone, but if she is, now would be the time to speak up.
Thank you, Steve. There's no indication that Ms. Graves is on the phone, so I will ask the board if you have any questions or comments on this matter. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals in part and grant Sheila Graves renewal application for a gaming employee G2 occupation permit with the condition that she show complete compliance with IRS filing and payment requirements for tax years 2016 through 2019 within 1 year of today's date.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The final matter of business under the Office of Chief Counsel is the report and recommendation pertaining to Bobby Patton Jr. By way of background, on November 1st, 2018, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Patton on the exclusion list, alleging that in July of 2018, he cheated while gaming at parks. Specifically, on July 9th, 2018, Mr. Patton placed bets while playing a hand of Texas Hold'em poker. After the hand was completed and Mr. Patton lost, he picked up his wagered chips, left the table, cashed in his chips, and exited the casino. A hearing on this matter was held in May 2019. OEC appeared, presenting evidence in support of its position that he should be placed on the exclusion list. Mr. Patton did not attend that hearing, and as a result, the report and recommendation and ultimate board order after receiving the report and recommendation was that Mr. Patton be placed on the exclusion list, and he has been on the exclusion list since October 2nd of 2019. Mr. Patton is now requesting to be removed from the board's involuntary exclusion list. The hearing in this matter was held on May 25th, 2021. Mr. Patton appeared at this hearing and testified on his own behalf, essentially testifying to his version of the facts about what occurred in parks back in 2018 that ultimately caused him to be placed on the list in the first place. After hearing all of that evidence, the hearing officer ultimately concluded that it would be improper to relitigate the facts upon which the board has already made findings in 2019. And as a result, Mr. Patton did not show extraordinary facts and circumstances warranting from his removal from the list at this time, and that Mr. Patton should remain on the list. And this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding Bobby Patton Jr.'s petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Mr. Patton remain on the list.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you, Steve. Next, we will have the Bureau of Licensing Matters.
Good morning,
Licensing
Madam.
Matters with Director Sean Hannon. John.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair Smiler and members of the board. Before the board today will be license consideration of one slot machine manufacturer renewal and one table game manufacturer renewal. In addition, there will be 1,090 principals, key employees, gaming and non-gaming employees, as well as qualifier applicants. Finally, there will be consideration of 20 gaming service providers. First, for your consideration are slot machine and table game manufacturer renewal licenses for SG Gaming Incorporated. SG Gaming is a Nevada-based manufacturer of slot machines, table games, and associated equipment for use or play at licensed facilities in the Commonwealth. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board first consider the order renewing the slot machine manufacturer license for SG Gaming Incorporated.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board grant the slot machine manufacturer renewal license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next would be the consideration of the renewal of SG Gaming Incorporated's table game manufacturer license.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the table game manufacturer renewal license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Canoodle seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next is consideration to approve a one-year license extension for conditionally licensed VGT terminal operator, Triple Diamond Gaming LLC. Triple Diamond Gaming was granted a one-year conditional license in September of 2020. Under the Gaming Act and board regulations, the board is authorized to extend this conditional license for an additional 1 year for good cause. The background investigation and suitability report process for the company is continuing at this time. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you grant the 1 year license extension.
Enforcement Council joins in that request.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Canoodle move that the board grants the extension for conditional establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
In addition, there are principal and key employee licenses. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a proposed order for 6 principals and 3 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the principal and key employee licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There are also temporary licenses. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with an order regarding the issuance of a temporary license for 2 principals and 21 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 732 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits, and 300 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registration as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There is also a recommendation of denial for 1 gaming and 4 non-gaming employees, as well as 1 VGT establishment employee. The applicants were notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified timeframe. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with orders addressing the applicants, who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the order approving the denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each matter.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board deny the gaming, non-gaming, and VGT establishment employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next, we have an order to certify the following gaming service providers: Baumgartner Finishings Company, LLC, Curry Building Systems Incorporated, Go Events Incorporated, Hunt Valley Environmental, LLC, Sport Content Co., LLC, Sports Gambling Guides, LLC, and William H. Lane Incorporated. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order certifying these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the withdrawal of gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Actually, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dermody. I think, Sean, you skipped over withdrawals, correct?
Did you skip withdrawals? I'm sorry, I apologize.
Sean?
Yes.
That's the wrong motion, then.
That's, I think we're now on gaming service provider. I think Sean will go back to the withdrawals.
Yes, I can continue with the gaming.
Sorry
service
about
provider
that.
Now we can go back to withdrawals later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm looking at Commissioner Logan for a motion on the gaming service provider certifications.
Sure, Madam Chair. Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certifications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Kernodle seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Next, I'll handle the gaming service provider registrations and then do the withdrawals. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with an order and an attached list of 13 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Kernodle move that the board approves the gaming service provider registration as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
And finally is the list of withdrawals for gaming and non-gaming employees provided by the Bureau of Licensing. I have provided you with an order to the board consider the order approving these withdrawals.
The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, Commissioner Dermody?
So this is the right time.
Yes.
Okay, good. Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the withdrawal of gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Any? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
This concludes the Bureau of Licensing matters.
Thank you, Sean. Next, we have Cyrus Petrie, Chief Enforcement Counsel.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 10 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 3 revocations, 2 suspensions, and 5 involuntary exclusions. The next 5 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation or suspension of gaming employee occupation permits or non-gaming employee registrations issued by the board. The complaints have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individuals named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each named respondent. Therefore, the facts in each matter are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. Deputy Chief Enforcement Counsel Dustin Miller will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action in each matter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Alex Bonilla. Mr. Bonilla had previously been employed as a valet attendant at Mohegan Sun Pocono. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Bonilla was arrested by the Kingston Police Department due to unlawfully selling a controlled substance on 3 occasions. As a result, Mr. Bonilla was charged with 3 counts of felony possession with intent to deliver. The charges remain pending in Luzerne County. Mr. Bonilla is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Alex Bonilla.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the suspension of Alex Bonilla's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next on the agenda is a request to revoke Kieran Gruwell's VGT Gaming Employee Occupation Permit. Ms. Gruwell, while the holder of a VGT Gaming Employee Occupation Permit, unplugged VGTs from the premises of then VGT establishment licensee Snowshoe Travel Plaza. These machines were removed by the terminal operator on March 11th, 2021. At some point between March 11th, 2021 and March 18th, 2021, Ms. Gruwell caused 7 unregulated and unlicensed gambling devices to be placed into operation on the premises of Snowshoe Travel Plaza. The IE's investigation determined that these machines accepted United States currency, had the ability to cash out tickets, and as such, zero out the credit meter. And they also paid out cash prizes valued at more than the amount wagered by printing a ticket behind the counter. These devices were not supplied by a licensed VGT terminal operator pursuant to a terminal placement agreement, nor are they connected to the central computer system. As such, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the video gaming terminal employee occupation permit of Kieran Gruwell.
Any questions or comments from the board? I have a question, Mr. Miller. Dustin, are we revoking the license because she operated illegal machines or because she operated VGTs that were licensed by us when she didn't have the authority to do so?
It's mainly the operation of the illegal VGTs and the interruption of operations with the licensed VGTs.
Okay.
When she unplugged the machines.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Chief Counsel Cook, do we have the authority to revoke somebody's license because they put in illegal machines? Because they're not deemed as of yet to be illegal. I think that's still an issue before the court.
Well, that issue depends on whether they were games of skill, which is an open question before the court, and whether they were illegal, like clearly illegal machines. And I'm not clear which these were, but I do believe, to Dustin's point, the former allegation that essentially she had licensed VGTs there while she was not appropriately licensed, and they remained on the premises and unplugged essentially while she was not properly licensed is basis enough to revoke her.
I might add that these machines are unauthorized machines. So whether they're illegal or not is really not the issue. The issue is that they're unauthorized and they were in an establishment that was licensed by the board, and she was licensed by this board. And that, in my opinion, is unsuitable behavior, the placement of unauthorized machines. So regardless of whether the machines are illegal or not, they're not regulated. And also the movement of the devices that were regulated and unplugged, she disconnected them from the system and from the central computer system without authorization.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
This
Commissioner.
is Commissioner Mustio. May I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Dustin, would it be fair to say that your description of these machines, they could also be known as skill machines?
Yes, some of the skill machines have been deemed illegal.
Okay, and I guess just to follow up on the comment I made earlier, whether she was operating these correctly or not, it does appear, at least from what was presented, maybe it's not the exact case, but we have another situation where revenue generating machines for the Commonwealth were being replaced by non-revenue generating machines for the Commonwealth. So I just wanted to kind of highlight the point that I made earlier as well. Thank you.
That's an excellent point. This is a real issue that the legally licensed operators are being confronted with. So are there any other questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Kieran Gruwell's video gaming terminal gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter for the board's consideration is a complaint to revoke the non-gaming employee registration held by Stephen Pope. Mr. Pope had been employed as a cash advance booth cashier by First American Bank Card Incorporated, a registered gaming service provider. Mr. Pope stole $100 while working at Rivers, Philadelphia by processing a cash advance for a patron in the amount of $400, but only giving the patron $300 and keeping the remaining $100. Mr. Pope was terminated for his actions. Mr. Pope is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration held by Stephen Pope.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Stephen Pope's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Derek Revito. Mr. Revito had been employed as a security officer at the South Philadelphia Turf Club associated with Parks Casino. Mr. Revito pled guilty to firearms not to be carried without a license, a felony offense, and misdemeanor driving under the influence. Mr. Revito is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Derek Revito.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the revocation of Derek Revito's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Curtis Tunstall. Mr. Tunstall had previously been employed as a steward at Lady Luck Casino. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Tunstall was arrested by the Pennsylvania State Police due to unlawfully selling a firearm and due to unlawfully selling a controlled substance. Mr. Tunstall was charged with felony firearms not to be carried without a license, felony manufacturing, delivering, or possessing with intent to manufacture or deliver a controlled substance, misdemeanor firearm ownership, duty of other persons, and misdemeanor possession of a controlled substance. The charges remain pending in Fayette County. Mr. Tunstall is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Curtis Tunstall.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the suspension of Curtis Tunstall's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders a proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, Deputy Chief Enforcement Counsel Dustin Miller will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Dustin Miller, once again, on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Anthony Caruso on the board's involuntary exclusion list. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Caruso engaged in physical altercations with another individual on Parks Casino's property. Mr. Caruso was previously banned from Parks Casino, and he was not permitted to be on casino property at the time that the incident occurred. Mr. Caruso was charged by the Pennsylvania State Police, and he pled guilty to summary defiant trespass. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Anthony Caruso on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Cannolo move that the board approve the addition of Anthony Caruso to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Mark Fox on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Fox left his 9-year-old son unattended for approximately 30 minutes to engage in gaming activity at Valley Forge Casino Resort. The child was left in a hotel room while Mr. Fox gamed at slot machines. Mr. Fox brought the incident to the attention of security when, after departing the gaming floor, he returned to the wrong hotel room and believed that his son was missing. Security accompanied Mr. Fox to his actual hotel room where the child was found asleep in bed. Both the Pennsylvania State Police and the Upper Merion Township Police Department were contacted. No criminal charges were filed in the matter. Mr. Fox was permanently evicted from the property. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Mark Fox on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I just have one. It's either Dustin or Cyrus. Did we look into the process, or I guess an individual checking in to the Valley Forge Casino and Resort with a 9-year-old? Should that have raised any red flag? They're not checking into the Hershey Hotel near Hershey Park.
No, well, because it's a resort casino, obviously people show up the same as it does at our other resort casino with their children. However, there are some issues that we found in reviewing some protocols within Valley Forge, and we are currently working with them to try to get those resolved. I can tell you one main issue that I personally have a problem with, that there are no security cameras in the hallways of the hotel. And an individual that is given that has access, because Mr. Fox was able to access another room that was not his own with a key. It could have been reversed, where an individual could access the room where the child was sleeping with a key. So there are some concerns in that regard, and presently we're in negotiations with Valley Forge to hopefully eradicate those concerns. I don't want to go into too much detail, but those matters will be coming before the board at a public meeting.
Yeah, I guess my only concern is I'm on their website and there's, unless I'm missing it, I apologize if I'm missing it, hundreds of pages of stay, play, dine, weddings, the pool. I don't think I see a kid's picture on it. So I'm not, and I've looked at other one, Mount Airy, ones that have hotels. And again, I don't think there's a kid's picture on the Mount Airy site either. So I'm just suggesting that when an individual, one parent, and I know I'm trying not to throw a blanket over this, when one parent checks in with a 9-year-old, the possibility of that person being left somewhere alone is probably greater. Again, the Valley Forge Casino and Resort doesn't really tailor their property to kids. That's only my suggestion, and I apologize if I'm characterizing it wrong. Maybe you can mention to them, I don't think the the check-in person should say, hey, don't leave your kid alone, but maybe, a flyer should be in the room. I'm just looking at any avenue that we don't leave kids alone in bars and or hotels.
No, you're correct. I mean, look, from on our standpoint, we're also looking at signage in those areas and in the elevators and within the hotel.
Yeah.
So it's a lot bigger, than just narrowing in. And I understand your concern, but yeah, there are several areas to that property that we are working with them to cover a vast majority of the area to ensure that people are put on notice.
Okay. And I thank you and your team for your work on this.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, this is Dermody.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that we are looking in the board. You were looking into the question of how somebody could get into another room with a key in the hotel. That's unsettling.
Very much so. I agree with you. And we are looking into that.
All right, we need to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's another good issue to be raised. Any other questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Mark Fox to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter for the board's consideration is a petition to place Alejandro Kranak on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Kranak shoved a patron at Mohegan Sun Pocono and stole $717.17 from her at a ticket redemption unit. Mr. Kranak had previously been evicted from Mohegan Sun Pocono for threatening Mohegan Sun staff, as well as Plains Township Police, resulting in a criminal charge of harassment, a summary offense to which he pled guilty. In addition, Mr. Kranak has been ejected from Mohegan Sun Pocono in 2 other instances for intoxication. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requested the board place Alejandro Kranak on its involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Alejandro Kranak to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next 2 items on the agenda arise from a common fact pattern. With the board's permission, I will read one fact pattern and then request separate board actions. Matthew Edward Murphy Jr. and Ashley Michelle Soto engaged in a conspiracy to cash out a fraudulent Coinstar voucher at the Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Both Ms. Soto and Mr. Murphy were criminally charged as a result of their actions, and both cases are currently pending. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board add Matthew Edward Murphy Jr. to the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Matthew Edward Murray Jr. to PGCB involuntary inclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
And finally, at this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board add Ashley Michelle Soto to the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the addition of Michelle Soto to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Cyrus and Dustin.
Thank you.
That concludes today's meeting. As I indicated earlier, the next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 10 a.m. at the PGCB Office of Hearings and Appeals in the Strawberry Square Complex, second floor in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The office is located adjacent to the food court. So now may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Commissioner Logan moves to adjourn.
Commissioner Arnold seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Day.